Let's go talk to Stephen Baggerly, who's an expat from this very country and a YouTuber, of course. Stephen and his wife moved to Majorca 30 years ago to teach at an international school. And basically, what's happening in not just Majorca, but in other parts of Spain as well, it's happening in Malaga, it's happening in the Canaries too. The locals are going, tourists, go home. We don't want your money. Stephen, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So, I mean, I'm very jealous of the fact that you live in Majorca for a start, because it must be lovely, much more clement than it is here, where it's been raining rather a lot. We're going to have 50 days of rain apparently over the summer. What's going on, and why is this suddenly a thing now that the locals are pretty fed up with all the tourism?
Well, it's not that they're fed up with tourism; it's that they're very concerned with housing and where they can actually live.
Yeah.
And so the protest that happened on Saturday was not so much about mass tourism, though that was part of it. It was more about people finding somewhere to live, somewhere to rent. And that's become a real problem in recent years. The prices of the rents have gone up, and people can't afford to rent. Children are living with their parents for longer. And it's that the protest was about. The protest slogan was "Majorca's not for sale."
Right. And so is that more of an Airbnb thing than it is a kind of people coming to stay in villas and hotels and things?
Well, it's part of it. A lot of the properties are being bought up now, and they're being rented out to tourists, and those properties then are not available to locals to have for rent.
Yes, but I mean, I don't know the numbers, and you may know better than me, but I mean, there's not more people particularly going to Majorca from here, are there?
There are considerably more. When we first came here, we used to get about 10 million tourists a year. It's now approaching 20 million tourists a year.
Right.
And the numbers are expected to be higher this year than they were last year. So the numbers are significantly increasing.
And so presumably that's the case in all countries. I mean, whenever I go to Majorca, there's always quite a few French people there, quite a lot of Germans there, quite a lot of Spanish people actually there as well, because the Spanish love to go to their own resorts, don't they, to go on a summer holiday?
Yes, it's and they're encouraged to. And in the winter time, there's a program for pensioners to come to Majorca, because the winter time's very quiet here. It's places like Magaluf just closed down for the winter,
right.
And so the Spanish government do have a system of bringing tourists in from the mainland through a program called Immerso.
Okay.
But yes, we do get lots and lots of tourists from all over Europe, and now we have direct flights from the USA, so we're getting people coming from there too.
And is there a kind of reaction from the local politicians or the local kind of, tourist boards, as it were? Are they kind of encouraging these protests? Are they likely to be influenced by them? What are they going to do?
Well, I think the one on Saturday, they're definitely going to be influenced by. The group that arranged it originally thought there were going to be about 2,000 attending. The police say there were 10,000, and I've seen reports that there were actually about 25,000. And it's not something that they can just turn away from. They're going to have to do something because they've threatened to do more protests.
Right. Yeah, and it's obviously not going to go away. I mean, is it an unpleasant atmosphere? I mean, I guess if you're a tourist and there's people marching around past your, dinner table as you're sitting there having your bowl of paella, it's not going to be that pleasant, is it? If somebody's shouting, "Tourists, go home."
No, I really feel sorry for the people who are sitting there in the Bourne having their dinner. It's not really aimed at the tourists. It's aimed at the government. It's the government that needs to do something about this. And by and large, the protesters agree and understand that. There is obviously a small minority of people who are really against tourists. And we have had, for many years, we've had signs saying tourists go home.
Right.
But I think mainly this particular protest was aimed at the government.
Yes, and so, I mean, what could they do? I mean, they can't really stop people from renting out their homes on Airbnb, or can they?
Well, they can. In order to rent a property here, you have to have a license, and it's the government that grants that license. If you don't have a license, you can't rent out a property as a tourist destination. And all they need to do is stop granting the licenses.
Yes. Interesting.
It's
Well,
very difficult to get a license.
yeah, well, we'll keep watching this space, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Stephen Bagley there, expat living in Majorca and a YouTuber. If you've been out there recently, tell us what it's been like. Tell us if you're out there now, in fact, doing half term with the kids. Are you getting sort of rounded up regularly by people going, get out, go home, don't rent a place here? Shocking.